Hi everyone. So what we've got here is there's a whole raft of things that we can use to make the animal legs, whether it's for the hares, whether it's for something like Heather the Highland Cow here. As you can see, we've got pipe cleaners in the legs in this one, and what that's allowed us to do is create a really nice shape and keep it really firm. Here, this has created these really nice long legs. There's no wires in those at all, but they're really firm, and that's done around a barbecue skewer. In fact, this whole hair is done, apart from the ears, is made around a barbecue skewer. The head, the legs and the body, to get those really, really nice shapes. And again, you can use the barbecue skewer to create the shapes for the legs at the side here, and then we build them up. And I'm going to show you how we do that. There's so many things you can do. I mean, this little mouse here has got a bendy tail, so there's a pipe cleaner in there. And if you want to get quite delicate, if you can see the legs on this flamingo, I'll just show you there. There we go. And the neck, that is done around this floristry wire, which is paper coated. And I always go for paper coated because it is the wool sticks to it really easily, and then because I've used the thin wire, I've been able to twist it and double it up, and those ridges actually make it even easier to get that nice thin, super thin leg that you see on the flamingos. And again, the neck's been done the same way. So I'm just checking the comments. Yeah, everyone okay? Yeah, and you can all see me okay. I'm assuming you can all see me okay because no one's saying you can't. Right, so and then here we have this little piggy. And the thing is, I don't use a full armature very rarely, because I just don't get on well with them, to be honest, because I like a firm felt. So what I tend to do is, like on the little piggy here, we've got some wire on the tail, and then just these legs have got wire in them. So you don't need to work on a full armature, and it can be a little bit daunting, and it is quite a different way of needle felting. So you know, there's different techniques to that as well. Excuse me. So if you're a bit anxious or you've never used wire before, this is a perfect way to start. Again, this sheep here, I think I've got pipe cleaners here, and then I've managed to create this really nice sort of hoof shape at the bottom here. Again, this sheep here, you can see, you can really build up those nice shapes. And I'm going to show you how to do that without wire poking through, without it becoming quite tricky. Here's a little baldy. So you can see a little bit better here how those legs have just been done on pipe cleaners. And then all I've done is put a patch of wool over it and attached it to the side of the body. And then this one here, again, this is the Hare. This is actually the one that is from my Herdwick sheep kit. This doesn't have any wires at all. So again, there's a technique, you know, there's several techniques, but I'm going to show you some really good quick wins tonight. And then also, if you want to get things really, really sort of finite and smooth and narrow, like these little sort of fairy sort of stroke angel arms, then again, this is just the wire that is bent around at the base there to create that hand. Some of you, well, quite a few of you have probably already done that. And then this is the forest fairy. So again, her legs around pipe cleaners. That's carded wool. You can use carded wool, you can use wool top, whatever you've got. I'll probably use a mixture of things tonight. So I think what we'll start with first is, well, I'll talk to you about, you just need a mat. Doesn't matter whether it's foam, whether it's Hessian. Always use a topper though. This is just a 1.5mm pure wool felt. That's a 6mm base. If you're just doing 3D, 3-dimensional felting, then that's absolutely fine on its own. If you're doing something where you're actually going to be pushing through that mat a little bit, because that's quite firm, so you need a really firm needle to sort of get through that. What you can do is you can top that with this 3mm here, or as I am going to just do tonight. I'm going to make it easy because a lot of people have just got felt, sort of, you know, flat felt. It could be in the toy box, just sort of hanging about from a previous project, and that is ideal. And the first thing I'm going to do is I have the body of Parsley Hare here. Turn that round. Made up, and we're going to do the legs. I'm going to show you how easy that is, and can you see how long they are? And you think, how do I get them that firm and that neat? Because with this project here, with a lot of projects, you can cover up the joins of the legs, but I deliberately, when I did this project, I wanted it to be an exercise in getting really good symmetry and smooth, clean lines, because there's nowhere to hide really. There's nothing being covered up. So that's what I'm going to show you to start with. So what you will need is just refresh your page. If you're having trouble joining, just refresh your page from the top, or I think if you go into watch as well, you can you'll find me on there, but you've just got to refresh the page, that's all. So all I've got here is this wooden barbecue skewer. That's all you need. You probably find one in the bottom of one of your kitchen drawers, years old. But I've started actually in most of my kits now, I've started actually just putting these in because they are just the best tool for getting really good shape and symmetry. This head for the hare was made around the barbecue skewer, and it's just brilliant because you get such a great shape on it. And we'll do a tutorial one night. We'll do all the things you can make with a barbecue skewer. Tonight we are doing legs. So wool, doesn't matter whether it's carded wool or a wool top. If it's a wool top, make sure it's a coarse wool top, like a Shetland or a Jacob or whatever, wherever you are, whatever, you know, if you've got something that's local and it's a nice coarse wool, then can you see how coarse that Jacob is? Now that's a Jacob top. That's a carded wool, both really coarse. This is a Shetland wool top, and next to the carded, you can see how coarse that is as well. And the difference is that the carded wool, when you pull like that, breaks really easily. When you pull on a wool top, the scales all get sort of grab hold of each other because it's processed and carded in one direction, whereas the carded wool is carded in lots of different directions. So the fibres are much shorter. You've got longer fibres on the wool top. So I'm going to do one with the wool, the carded wool to start with. Now, when you're doing the legs, when you're using this stick, you really want them to be as firm and as slim as possible. So what you want to do is just pull away a piece of your wool. Same if you're using the wool tops, exactly the same. Now the only thing that you have to do differently when you're using each of these wools is, if you're using the carded wool, because it breaks more easily, make sure when you wrap that you've got it really close to the skewer as you turn it, because what happens is it will break off, which is fine, you can reattach, but it just makes it easier. It's less likely to happen if you've got a wool top, as I said, because you've got those longer fibres, and as you pull away, it naturally just wants to sort of grab hold of itself. I don't know why I'm freezing. Everything seems to be fine here. It could, everything seems to be working. So sorry about that. You'll just have to try it on the replay later. I would imagine it will be working fine. So there we go. Move all of this out of the way. So a wooden barbecue skewer. All you need is a standard, that isn't a standard one, 38 I'm using. It's a little bit bent, but it's fine. And you can see there's not a great deal of flex in that, so it's quite firm. That's a 40, and that's more flexible, so you'd use that for something finer. You don't really want to be using your fine needles when you're working around wires and wood, because they will snap really easily. Yeah, if it's freezing, it must be something to do with your server or your reception, because I think, you know, some people, I think the majority of people it's okay for, and everything's working okay here. Right, so you've got your wool. You can just mat the end a little bit with your fingers. Hold it with one finger and then just start to wrap it round. Now, the technique for this is the best way to do it is to keep that wool flat. Don't let it twist. And already my carded wool is starting to unfold, but I'm not going to worry about that. I'm just going to get that on there. And you see, we're not even using the needle yet. So it's broken off, which is good because I can show you that it doesn't matter. And then just push that needle down the side of the skewer. We're not felting this really because the wool is just going to hold on to itself, and that's it. So I'm going to go back to the piece that broke, mat it again. And I'm just going to keep my hands really close, and then because I've just attached it there, I'm just going to poke down the side there. And don't worry about getting it smooth or shaped nicely yet. We're going to build this up. So keep it flat as you turn. So can you see, you don't want it twisting. You want to keep it nice and flat. And you can move your fingers around, move your hands around, whichever way works for you. Doesn't matter. And then as you go down, just occasionally, a few pokes with that needle. And then what you can also do is, if you're worried about it getting too long or slipping down the skewer, just put your thumb and your finger at the base there, just to keep it nice and secure. Remember, if you're using carded wool, don't pull too far away from the stick. And keep going. I'm just going to move that. I'm looking a bit awkward because I'm trying to keep it in shot so you can see what's happening. And this is such a great way to get really nice, smooth, firm legs. Nice symmetry. You could even, if you're worried about them being different lengths, you could even actually mark the barbecue skewer. So you could put, you know, a little bit of felt tip at one end of the other and say that's the maximum length that it needs to be. But how we do it, it doesn't really matter if one's a bit longer or shorter than the other. Again, carded wool has just come off there, but that's okay. So this is how easy it is to sort out problems when you're felting. They're not really problems because there's always a fix. And that's why it's best to start with less than you need, always. Yeah, yeah, sometimes I twiddle the stick, yes. And then sometimes I don't. My technique changes sort of as I'm working, but I'm gonna try twizzling, which I do sometimes. I think twizzling I can do better with the wool top because it's less likely to break. But there we go. And can you see now getting that bit shorter there? So I'm just going to start working back down. And can you see now as I'm working down how that top layer, I'm spreading that out and we're starting to get that really neat finish. And there we go, twizzle that around there. But don't worry about the lines as you wrap it round. If you can see those lines, don't worry about it, because we can smooth that out on the stick, and we can also smooth it out when we take it off the stick. Now what you want to do is, when you decide, Corriedale wool top, Kelly, is absolutely fine for this. Absolutely fine. Yep. Even a merino would work actually for this. If you've got a merino, that would work because of the process that we're using, because of the technique. Now as you're doing this, you're going to want to decide which is going to be the bottom of the leg. Got you live on my phone, but can't find live on other devices. Do you mean on YouTube, or do you mean just on your actual devices, Audrey? Because this is just live here at the moment within the group. So decide as you're going along. Let's get some more wool. Which end is going to be the foot end, and I think because it's quite narrow up here, I think I'm going to start building up this here. So just pull that down. So I'm just going to add some here, just that. You see how it's loose? You just pop it on. You see, almost it just sticks to itself. Looks okay in Holland. Hi, Erica. Video just come on. Hi, Manjin. And this will be on replay. Don't worry. You can come back to this. Everything that I do within the group will stay within the group as a replay, and you know, I'll be putting things on YouTube, but the idea of this group is so that you can all come in, and if you go if you use the topics section, then I'm going to hashtag everything, whether it's an event, whether it could be felting needles. So if you're looking for something on felting needles, go into the topics section and see where and just click on whichever the hashtag is. Tonight I'll hashtag this as legs or how to avoid saggy legs, or something silly. But yeah, if you just go into the topics, okay, right, I'm going to twizzle. So can you see what I'm doing here? You can twizzle, and this is you can do this super easy if you've got the wool tops. And can you see I'm just building up that base, and can you see how nice and smooth that is? Now I'm going to bring that diagonally up the leg again, because we want to keep that nice and narrow. Now I'm taking quite a bit of time to do this, but once you've done this a few times, you will get really super fast at it. So I'm just going to pull that off, and what I'm going to do is at the top here, just pull that off. Won't be so easy to pull off like that if you're using a top. Don't over felt this, keep this loose, because this is how we create our nice sort of invisible joins, is by having some nice loose wool at the top of the limb. So go along diagonally now, because what you do when you're going diagonally is you're now going across the top area of your wool, and you're smoothing out those lines, and we're going to do that even further soon, but for now just going diagonally with your needle, just keep turning, and then where this foot is, just start to go directly and straight in, because we want to get that really firm. Hi Laurie, oh thanks for joining in Texas. So can you see, as I'm pushing that needle through that wool there, it's getting really, really firm. It's firm already because we've used the stick. But can you see how that foot is now beginning to become bigger and build up? So we're sort of squashing that wool in now. We're really creating a nice, firm sort of paw. And this technique you can apply to so much. There we go. So what I'm going to do now is just go along here again. Just make sure it's nice and firm all the way through. Now, somebody asked me if you could do this on a chopstick. You can, but because the chopstick's thicker, you're just going to have to make sure you felt when you take it off the chopstick that you really go in and felt and seal up that gap. You felt that gap up. The beauty of a barbecue stick is it's really thin, so it doesn't really affect the integrity of the piece. So can you see that? And now what you can do is just put it in your hand and just roll it backwards and forwards, nice and gently. Don't let it lengthen too much. And there. Because we're going to work on it now. So now we're going to take it off the skewer. We're just going to slide it off. And can you see what we've done there? How nice and firm it is. And then I'm just going to roll it really roughly, just to close up any gaps inside. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is I really want to show a separation between the leg and the foot. So put your finger here, press super hard, really roll. And can you see how you've squashed that down? And then we can come back to this and we can just and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep that foot there. I'm not going to roll that area because I want that to stay nice and wide. And then I'm just going to really firmly, super firmly. I mean, your hands should get really warm. And can you see how now we've got that nice, firm, smooth finish, but we've left that bit we've left that bit loose. So can you see that? So just if it's a bit felted, I mean, if you've over felted it, doesn't matter, but can you see, just pull it apart a little bit. And don't worry if it hasn't worked first time. Remember, if you're a beginner, you've never used this technique before, you know, it will take a little bit of getting used to, but once you're used to it, you'll wonder how you managed without a barbecue skewer in your felt box. It's mad. I've been using one for quite a few years, for one thing and another, but now I try and incorporate it into everything because it just makes the job so much easier. And there we go. And then I'm just going to go back in here. Now you could build that foot up even more. I mean, if you wanted to go sort of, you know, if you wanted something like Thumper, then there is nothing to stop you getting a little bit more wool. Or if you find that that leg might be a little bit thick, just wrap that wool round. And just sort of tack it around. And can you see how that's got even bigger? I like quite big feet on my hares, you see. And then again, attack the front with your needle. Watch your fingers. And needle felting, like anything else, it takes time. If you're gonna, you know, you only get so much faster when you're experienced, because, you know, it's like anything. It's like sewing, it's like knitting. It takes time. You're not going to pick up a felting needle and suddenly be an expert. It's just not going to happen. But if you've got enthusiasm, a little bit of patience and a willingness to sort of just get involved and enjoy it, then that's it. That's all you need. Enthusiasm, a cuppa and a slice of cake. But there you go. So that leg is done. And again, I'm just going to go here. You can see that foot. And if you're suffering from arthritis or you've got dexterity problems, don't press as hard, just work it for a little bit longer. And again, you don't need to do this the rolling in the hand. You can still do, I mean, you can felt it really firmly and then just give it a quick once over if it's really causing problems with your hands. But if it isn't, then this is a super fast way of getting that nice and firm. And there's no wire, nothing in there. And then, as you can see here, we've got these lovely neat joins at the top here, and that is because we left that wool loose. But even if you hadn't, it wouldn't matter, because you can just go over the top like so and put a little patch on, and that completely covers it up. So there's always quick ways of doing it. And also, I'm not sure if I've got a reverse needle here. Let me have a look. No, I haven't got a reverse needle handy, but you can use a reverse needle as well to pull out. So let's say we've used a reverse needle and it's pulled all of this wool out, because that's what it does the reverse. Then you can just tack it gently on top of that first layer. So I've got a body here. Well, it's a cone made on the barbecue skewer. No, you definitely never finish learning. So it's a slightly different colour to the wool I've got here, I think. It might have been a different batch, but actually it makes it a little bit easier for you to see. And now you know how firm it is there. If you just bend that with your thumb and your finger, it holds. You can, if you want it to hold a little bit more, go through that bend and felt through. The beauty of wool when it's been felted is how pliable and malleable it is. You know, you can move it into positions, you can tilt the head, you can tilt the leg, and then that is, as you can see, perfect almost. And then what you do is you find the base of your of the body. Now what I often do is, can you see how much longer this one is? It doesn't really matter. That's what I was trying to sort of get across. It doesn't matter if one's longer. What I tend to do is when I'm putting a pair of legs on, I will actually, if you lay them on their side and felt through, just to hold them together, can you see? It makes it a lot easier to get them in the same place. And then just tack them on. They'll be flopping about all over. And can you see, because you put them on together, you haven't got one leg hanging down and one leg longer than the other. And even though this is coming up slightly higher, it doesn't matter, because again, we can go in diagonally. So pull that loose wool around. You will spend a little bit more time than I am, because I want to move on to something else very soon. But then just work down diagonally, so it's gradual. And then, like I said, anything that is still left and unsightly afterwards, you can just pop some wool over, just like wisps of wool. In fact, there's too much on there. And just spread it out in different directions. And then at the bottom here, you see what I'm doing? Just poke through a couple of times, and that will keep those legs in place there. And then you do exactly the same on the barbecue skewer again, but you make smaller legs. So these are for the back legs. And again, you've got this loose wool here. I like mine to sort of be almost opposite the front legs. You pop them on. Now these back legs, or the hind quarters, or whatever you call them, wrong needle. I mean, that looks really unsightly, but it doesn't matter because you're going to cover it up. So then what you do is you grab some wool, pull it apart, pop it on there. This is going to be your bottom layer, so don't worry, this is where you're building up. And can you see how that is actually giving that really nice shape, definition that you're aiming for here? And really work that. Don't overfelt this. because you want it to be nice and soft, because if you overfelt it, then you're going to lose that shape. And again, diagonally, so you want to sweep up as you're attaching it. So if you're going diagonally rather than straight in, you're not going to be losing that shape. And you can build this up as much as you like. Keep going with it. And then for the final layer, to cover everything up, you were just going to lay really thin wisps on so that it almost doesn't need felting. And you can do that if you're using, whether you're using wool top or carded wool, it doesn't matter. Can you see how that's covered up all of those seams? And again, you work up diagonally, but this area here, you want this to be raised because that's your shape. And then the legs also help to balance your project. And then if you have a tail, I don't have a tail on this. It's quite a sort of whimsical, sort of simple folk style. So I haven't put anything on it. But if you wanted, you could put a little tail on. But you can see how that sits quite easily because you've got these legs here, these nice firm legs. And they're really long, but they're really firm. There's no sort of bends in them that people often, especially when they start felting, often have a problem with. And then what I've done here is I've just popped some white over just as little accents and details. And then this is actually kit. This is the Parsley Hare kit, and put a little ruffle on and kept their face really, really simple. Again, around a barbecue skewer, just some little glass eyes, little sort of touch of, this is white carded wool, white Jacob I think carded, and again in the ears it's just accents. So that is really a lesson. And if you go onto my YouTube channel, there is a playlist for this project, and I think it's 5 or 6 tutorials, so it's split into legs, body, head, ears, and then putting it all together. So that is a full tutorial that you can go and find on my YouTube channel. In the description on this post, I've put the link for YouTube and I've put the link for my blog as well. There's just a ton of stuff on there for absolutely everybody to get stuck into. So that's how I do that on the barbecue skewer. And like I said, that can be adapted for so many different things. Now, the next thing I'm going to show you is how I use a pipe cleaner. And many of you will know how to use a pipe cleaner. But what I do is I make 2 legs on the pipe cleaner because I don't make massive animals. So this is my wee Highland Cow. That was the worst accent ever. I apologise to anybody Scottish in the group. That was unforgivable. The horns, that's just wool. There's no clay or anything there. That's just wool twizzled, firmed up, popped on. This is what's it called? Do you know the 80s band Lamar? Was it Lamar who had that big haircuts? I always think that reminds me of Lamar. And then you've got this lovely windswept coat on, but you've got these legs here, and what I've done is so that both legs were perfectly equal. I've used 1 pipe cleaner and then cut it once I've wrapped it with the wool. So I'm going to show you how to do that now. And then the Highland Cow's got quite rough legs, so I actually snipped into the wool afterwards. But if you're not brave enough to do that, that's fine after all the hard work. So I'll quickly show you how to do that. Now I'm going to use a wool top. I'll use the same chocolate brown wool that I use for the Highland Cow, or Heather as she is affectionately known. Now you don't, these are going to be quite chunky, so I'm going to pull off about so much. And again, this is a cotton wrapped pipe cleaner. It's just like a tobacco pipe cleaner. It's what you would have got in a tobacconist, when they were, when they were around. And you can still get them online. They're in the shop as well. You can buy packs of 20. I've got different wires and things if you want to buy little sets. Same goes for the felting mats. But the cotton pipe cleaners mean that it, you know, you really get a nice grip on it. It doesn't slip. So all I'm going to do is, now, do I bend? I can't remember. I don't think I do bend the legs on this. No, we keep that straight because we come over the edge. So we're going to start here, and I'm just going to wrap this wool top around, and I'm going to come over the end. That's how I do it. Come over the end, and I'm just going to tack that on, that little bit. Have it slightly hanging over the end, because what we'll do is when we come back down, we'll have more coming over the end, then we'll fold it over, and then that makes that nice sort of hoof area. Find my comfortable position. So again, same applies. This is wool top. Keep it nice and flat as you move it around. And now this time I am going to twizzle. It's much easier with a wool top to twizzle because it's less likely to break. And it's going to look really unsightly and lumpy and odd to start with, but this is the first layer. So keep it nice and flat, twizzle it round all the way down. Don't worry about using your needle. Oops, just a bit thick there. So make sure it's diagonal, and if it gets too, if you find that it's lumpy or it's getting too thick, take it off. Then when I got there, about 2/3 of the way, just go along, just so it holds. And it looks really weird at the moment, but that's because we're not even halfway there. And then keep turning, keep it flat. You see how flat that wool is? You don't want it twisting, because that's when it will be lumpy and it'll be difficult to get the shape. Get to the end here. And remember, you're going down the side of this pipe cleaner and you want a nice firm needle. You don't want anything flimsy that's really bendy. And then just come to the end and let it go over. And hang there. And then we're going to work our way back up. Which way is going to work? Let's get this around there. That's it. So we'll work our way back up. Because remember, the Highland Cow's got quite chunky legs. So we want to build them up before we start to concentrate on the shape. And there, we're just going to work down again. Working all the way down. Hold it there. Down the sides. Don't be too rough. Because even the 38s will break if you hit them hard enough. And then you see I've got a little bit of pipe cleaner there still visible, so I want to really come over the end there. And then I'm just going to pull that off. And when you pull the wool tops away from itself, you need to have your hands a further distance apart than you would the carded, because again, these are long lengths all brushed in one direction, so it naturally grabs hold of itself. So just pull it away gently. And I'm just going to tack all that in. So now can you see how that shape will start to come together? And again, there'll be wispy bits, it'll be all over the place, but we will do the sort of hand rolling motion again. We can smooth that. Now, because this is hanging over the edge, what we want to do here is just lift that up and push in as well, because we want to flatten it. We want a nice flat base. And we want to go diagonally up the leg so that it narrows. So we're not going to do really any more on here. I'm going to go to this end and build that hoof up as well. Can you see? And I'm just going to tuck this wool in. Not that you'll be able to see it because I'll be stood on it. There we go. And then I'm just going to go along, because when I start to roll it, I don't want it to unravel. So make sure that it is all felted on itself. Just keep turning it, going in diagonally. You will catch it all because it's narrow. Would you use the same principle? Yeah, same for dogs. Yeah, dogs' legs and paws. Yeah, any animal that you're creating legs for, definitely. So let's see where we're at here. Let's just firm this up a little bit. So I'm just, can you see? You can just see the tip of that pipe cleaner there. So I'm going to take not too much. I'm just going to hold it sort of, I don't know, about 5 mils away from the end of where the pipe cleaner is, because if you start at the very end, it's going to slip off. So just felt that on. So now that's holding on nicely. And now we're just going to let that come over the end. And it's looking very strange at the moment. It looks like a rubber on the end of a pencil. But I'm going to fold that over. And what you will find here is, as I have done, you will end up probably with one foot a bit wider than the other. So you'll just go back and add a little bit more to the other end till they're more or less the same, but they don't have to be perfect. And any lumps and bumps, we can just put a final wisp of wool around. But make sure this is nice and felted quite firmly, because you don't want it slipping off. And you see how much you can compress that, even though it looked huge a minute ago, but now it's really flattening out. And if you're doing a Highland Cow, don't worry too much about wisps, because they have really sort of rough looking legs. Always look at the shape of the animal you're making. You know, you don't have to be an artist, you don't have to be able to draw, but just observe the look of an animal, the general shape. And honestly, if you have a photograph in front of you, it makes such a difference. Could you cheat and wrap a cotton bud? No, I wouldn't, because the cotton bud's really... Oh, no, because we don't have the plastic ones now, do we? Yes, I suppose you could, but you would have to do 2 separate ones, because one cotton bud wouldn't be big enough, unless you're making something teeny tiny. So these are just 15 centimetre pipe cleaners. If you've got the 30 centimetres, then cut them in half. So I'm just going to gently just roll that, not overzealously. Just want to see where we're at. We're not actually that far off, and we need a little bit more on here. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to felt that flat and down. I'm not too concerned about the feet being exactly the same size, because you will be here all night. And then you can just push or use your mat to get that nice flat base. I'm just going to add a tiny piece around the other one, just because it's a little bit smaller. Just to, don't start with too much, because you'll end up then with this one being bigger and then you're backwards and forwards like a yo-yo for some time. If you're a perfectionist, then that's something that you're going to be doing anyway. But can you see how I'm just wrapping that around quite tightly? I've let it go over the edge, and it's also neatened up that top layer. And again, just tuck in the base of the foot, just so we don't have any loose wool. And this is wool top, and this is a really nice coarse Shetland, and you see how well it's felting. I've just done, if you haven't seen, in the welcome video that I did for the group, there is a little sort of PDF gift for you. I say little, it's more like a mini ebook on different wools, sheep breeds, what I use, how I use it. And it's a really good guide, and I hope those of you who have managed to have a look at it have really, you know, got something out of it, or something new. And obviously if you've just started needle felting, there'll be a lot to digest, so just a little bit at a time. And there we go. So all I'm going to do now is I'm just going to firm up this middle part here, because these legs want to be quite chunky, and that's not bad. I'm actually pleased with that. For a live, I usually cock it up, but there we go. And now all I'm going to do is, don't use your good scissors, please. Be brave. Straight down the middle. Cut. I know. And then pull that loose wool there out, and the same here. Now where you've cut it, this is where you would have a problem attaching it, because you've cut through the fibres. That's why you shouldn't cut felt that you're going to actually felt onto something else, unless you're using loose wool on top of it, which we are going to be doing, so that will be absolutely fine. And then I haven't got a Highland Cow here. I'll use this. I've got a body here. I mean, I'm sure that loads of you who do needle felting, you must have a box full of limbs and heads and bodies, or I call them limbs in limbo. You know, they're just kind of waiting for something. So if we do, let's say this is the Highland Cow, you've created the body, which is this big chunky bod here. Pop that on there, and then get some fresh wool. And it's not going to be visible, so we're not going to make this pretty. Get some fresh wool. And felt down the side. Because what we're doing is we want to build that side up anyway. Just like we did with the hare. But this time, it doesn't matter what it looks like. And the same would be if you were doing this for a sheep, and you're covering it with wool, the same applies. And then what you want to do is you want to tangle the fibres of the leg into the fibres of the new wool, get them both going into that body, and that will secure it. Can you see how that's really firming up? And I just find this, for me, better than working around a full armature. I find it I'm a bit of a lazy felter, to be honest. And I find and I have done full armatures, you know, and I will again, but I do find that if I can get away with it, I'd rather just do the legs or the tail, or pop a little bit of wire in the neck if I want to pose the head, like this one. I think, I don't think that one, no, that one actually hasn't. It's the neck's firm enough, it doesn't need the wire, but you can actually, I make the neck separate now, again, around a barbecue skewer. I'll show you that if you wish. And I pop a bit of wire in, and then I just poke the wire up through the head with a little bit of glue on into the body, and then it sort of gives it that nice neck. And if you want to pose it, then that works really well, but otherwise you don't need anything. It's just, you know, felting the neck. And I find making the neck separately is easier than trying to shape the head with the neck, which, to be honest with you, is a real faff about. So there we go, you can see. And then when we pop our other leg on, you just make sure that it's sitting where the other one is. And the great thing is as well, when you have completed it, so as you can see here, I've completed all of them. If one, let's have a look, see if, okay, so these back legs, can you see they're slightly shorter? You can actually just pull them to lengthen them. They will pull down because they're attached to the body and it's allowing you to move them. So again, wool's really pliable. And then this has got a nice top coat of Shetland wool tops on. It's looking a bit matted now, I think, I'm, you know, because I've handled it that much for videos and tutorials and what have you. But wool tops are always the best thing I find for this kind of project, because obviously you can't get those wisps with the carded wool, you know. I mean, I wanted that really windswept kind of look, which you can achieve. There we go. So you attach those legs, we've built it up, so we've given it some shape. And then what I've done here is to make it a little bit more sort of windswept. I've kind of snipped into the legs, but you don't have to do that. If you want them really smooth, that's fine. But if you look at most Highland cows, you'll find that the fur on their legs is quite windswept in itself. It's short, it's at different lengths. So I quite like that effect. And again, I've used this really nice wool top. So that is that's how I use the pipe cleaners. And then when it comes to, I've got a bit of wire there. So we've got the paper wire here. So if you wanted to say make a neck, let's have a look. What have we got? Let's use the grey wool top. So this is the Jacob, and the neck doesn't want to be too thick, but I think that should be fine. So if you want to create a neck around the wire, you just do the same as you did with the barbecue skewer. Hold it in place and make sure it doesn't become really long, otherwise your animal's going to look a bit odd. It's going to be more like a giraffe or a llama. I've got a few like that. So just wrap it around that wire. Keep it nice and short. Believe you me, it really does need to be quite short. And then you can felt that up like so. So you're making a barrel, just like a really small barrel. And this is if you want to pose the head of your animal. Again, you don't need a full wire armature. Come round here. It just went south. What went south? I'm getting a new setup as well. I've got a new monitor coming, well, a second monitor. and a new webcam. So I'm going to try and be all technical and have sort of me talking in shot, but my hands doing the work at the same time, which will be a lot easier for me to see what's going on. And then we can maybe get some people in, show, you know, if they want to show me how they're doing. You don't have to come on, your face doesn't have to be visible, you can just show me with your hands what you're doing. So can you see how we're doing that? And you just leave that on like so. You bring that up, and then you would attach, I've got a head somewhere, bear with me a moment, there we go. So before you actually attach it, what you do is you poke that through. You can use an awl or just poke it through with the glue on and snip off the end, and then again poke a hole into the body with a bit of glue on the end, poke it into the body so the head and the body then connect. And then once you've done it, just let that dry, let that glue dry. So imagine the body is attached like so, and let that glue dry. And once the glue's dried, you can then go in and actually attach the neck to the head and the body. And I find that so much easier to do. And then if there's any kind of ugliness around here, you know, with the joins and what have you, then you just need to take a little bit of the wool. I mean, these are two different colours, so obviously it's not what I'm showing you the contrast. And you just wrap a little bit of wool around the base of the head and the top of the neck, and that will cover up all the seams. What kind of glue do you use? I just use a fabric glue. Any fabric glue or a tacky glue. So what I do is I would use the pokey tool, the awl, and make a hole. Then I pop the glue. I actually try and get the glue in the hole, which I find is easier. Then pop the top of the wire in, and then kind of let that set for half an hour. And then I come back and do the same with the body. Let that set for half an hour. This is only though if you want to have a flexible neck, if you want to have a poseable neck. If you don't need to do any of that. You know, you can just take it off and attach it as is. You don't need to mess about with any of that. But if you want to pose the head, then that's what I like to do. So I hope that makes sense. Does PVA work? Yeah, oh, no, I'm not quite sure about PVA and wool. I mean, PVA works for pretty much everything. But I would go with like a fabric glue or a tacky glue. But you can try PVA. I mean, it sticks everything, doesn't it? Yeah. Try it. Let me know. Let us know in the comments if you try it and see if it works. So that's another little tip. And then if you are doing something like the flamingo legs or the fairy arms, then you want really, really thin, wispy amounts of wool, because all you're doing here really is covering up the wire. You'd use this for, this is a good, if you're doing bird legs. And can you see, I'm just wrapping that round, and it's, because it's fabric covered, sorry, got out of shot there. Because it's fabric covered, it doesn't slip, so you don't need any wax. Have you noticed that I didn't use any wax? You don't need anything to get anything to stick. I hate using wax. I find it really messy. If you're doing little fingers and toes, I think, yeah, it comes in really, really useful, but it gets everywhere. And then and this, I do like to use a wool top because I want to get hold of that really firmly. And then what I've done here is I have created that loop at the bottom for the foot. And what you do when you get to the bottom, I shall show you, is just felt that in there so it holds. And then as you go round the bottom here, I'm going to run out, but it doesn't matter. Can you see, because you've created that loop, you're actually creating the shape of the foot. And then where that gap is, if you just felt, that's going to hold it all together. You see? And you will need to, I mean, that takes a little bit of practice, but you can see immediately how that's working. And then I would add a little bit more around there until that was properly covered up, and then you would felt it nicely in. And then what you can do here is you can really smooth this. Could you do that technique? Yeah, that works for ears. I did a life-size winter hare, and the ears were this long, and I used that technique as a way, because the ears were so big, there was no way they were going to stay up. And I used a massive loop like that to wrap wool around. Yeah, works really well for lots of different things. And then you can rub it, and can you see how you've got, I mean, mine's a bit rough because I've not spent any time on it. You, of course, would spend more time on it. But you can see that we've covered up that wire and we've allowed it to stay nice and slim. And then again there, I've got a loop at the top here, and you can actually sew that if you want to, or felt that onto your animal. Entirely up to you how you do it. But those are just sort of my tips, quick wins. I'm just looking to make sure I haven't missed anything. I don't think I have actually. And there's other ways obviously of making legs. Without using any of those tools, you don't need them. You can actually flat felt a kind of, if you haven't got those things, you can flat felt. This is another really good technique for making legs. You can flat felt a piece, and then depending on how long it is, you can actually roll that around, hold and felt. I mean, you can do these things really, really quickly. And again, can you see it already? Just, I mean, super, super fast. You've started to create that shape. So that's another way, without using anything. You don't need to use any of those things, but I find that if you want a really nice, firm shape, that the barbecue skewer, the pipe cleaners, and that work brilliantly. But for not using any wire at all, the barbecue skewer is amazing. It's just one of my favourite tools, and you should definitely have that in your felt box, and that it will come in so handy. And like I say, this entire hair, aside from the ears, is all made around that barbecue skewer. Legs, the body and the head.